Well, shall we?
Shall we? We shall. Did you just put on cologne? Do you
No.
smell that? It smells like cologne.
Is it my deodorant?
But did you just apply it?
Before I came over, yes.
But I literally just now got hit like with a wall of scent.
Well, now I have to know. Is it this?
Yes. But why did I just smell it? It smelled, listeners, gorgeous. It really smells so good, but
A Mitchum deodorant.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I've started using aluminum deodorant again.
Colin, I'm more worried about that now than the Celsius.
Why though? Are there any studies actually? I can't remember. I can't remember why I stopped back in like 2012. Isn't everything linked to cancer?
Well, that's also
I've been doing this for 12 years of my life because someone somewhere on the internet told me aluminum was bad for me. It builds up in my lymph nodes.
Maybe just detox every once in a while. How about that?
Well, I've only been using it for like 2 months.
Okay, well maybe in 2 months.
The detox was 12 years of detox.
But now you're retoxing, so you have to detox again.
I guess.
This is turned into a wellness podcast.
Listeners weigh in.
Wait, listeners, pop off in the comments. I don't know why I said it like that. Welcome. It just made me think of like a middle school choir, like welcome
to Script Daddy.
Script Daddy. I'm your host, Carlie,
and I'm Colin.
Not a host, just Colin walking by.
We are your Script Daddies.
We're your Script Daddy. I will say every time I hear Script Daddy, it makes me feel like a badass.
Yeah, I do enjoy it.
I'm just like, yes, I'm your Script Daddy.
Yeah, we're your Script Daddies. How do you enjoy being Script Babies? Script Babies, let us know.
Do you like to be a little Script Baby?
I hope so.
Little tiny baby.
Because if you don't, someone's getting pankins.
Pancakes. He meant pancakes.
No, I'm in a spanking. We believe in corporal punishment here at Script Daddy. If you're bad, that butt's getting tanned, baby.
In the sun. That's what you mean.
With my belt.
Oh.
Well. No, we don't hit children here.
No, we don't. We're ending that.
Thank God.
Thank God.
I wish my parents had broken that cycle.
I'm here to break it for them.
For real. You know the drill, people. Here at Script Daddy, we read scripts, watch the movie, and then discuss the differences between script and screen.
And I have to say, if any part of me was fearful that I would get sick of this, it's the opposite. The more that we do this, the more that I feel like we need to do it about every movie that's ever been made.
Our list has gotten very long.
Our list has gotten very long. And what's funny is we'll always like end this episode with like, okay, this is the one we're going to do next. And then something happens and we both text each other like, actually, can we do this? And then we do.
Yeah.
It's weird how that is, but it's been fun to just like follow it. Like neither of us get weird about it. Like we're both just like, oh yeah, let's go.
It's all going to be fun.
It's all going to be fun. But it's
all
also
interesting.
It feels like we're like ping-ponging in a way that I really enjoy.
I do too. We're really swapping back and forth between genres and budgets.
Think you can catch us? No. We're going to horror and then to blockbuster romance.
And then to Uranus.
And
not
then an indie.
The planet.
Uranus, then an indie, then Uranus again.
So what script are we doing today?
We're doing Being John Malkovich, which this was a rando only. And by that, I just mean we had a different movie we were all set to go on. And then all of a sudden it was like, you were like, do you want to do Being John Malkovich? And we were like,
in my mind, I was like, the one we did before was like big, iconic, big budget, like blockbuster.
Universally loved
movie.
Yep.
And then it was like, wouldn't it be fun to do one that I don't know if this is an indie though. It feels like an indie.
I did see cult classic over and over and over again.
Well, who did it? Was it Focus? Who was it?
I think so.
I think it's but it's weird though. So it's like we hadn't done one yet that's like a weird movie.
Weird, yeah.
That like set out with the intention of being a weird movie.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good discernment. It's set out fully with both arms. Like
one and two. Well, that's also not true.
Oh,
readers our technically first episode was Bottoms.
True.
And that movie sets out to be weird.
That's very
and it
true.
delivers so well.
It really does. Maybe
still,
we'll release that one.
Maybe it might be a Patreon exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive.
It's very early. The audio's not great.
We're both hyper active.
Yeah,
but it was so fun. We love that movie. We love Bottoms.
Loves.
Yeah, I don't know if this would be considered. I don't think this would be considered an indie, but
if it was made today, it would only be an indie.
Oh, for sure.
Like it would not be a studio movie these days.
Hard if it was even made.
Like, I mean, Being John Malkovich 2, the sequel, would be fucking movie because everything's a sequel these days.
Oh, I can't. I don't even know.
However, I was thinking while I was watching, I was like, this actually, I mean, here I am literally doing a 180. It could actually be kind of fun to do a sequel to this because it's being someone else. And so the only thing that's the same is that there's the door or maybe the little office or something. Maybe even doing a completely alternate thing could be fun, and having a different celebrity and exploring, like really going into the psychological and philosophical like messaging that this movie had that it didn't kind of skate around on the surface of, but didn't really dive in.
You're so... Should we write that? Should we write that together? Let's do it. No, but fully agree. I didn't even think about that. But also too in the modern world, because one of the things that they referenced in the trivia that I'll get into in 2 seconds was that something that worked for the film was that landlines were the only thing that cell phones were not common at that point at all. That I was like, that creates a different,
which is interesting because this is one of my notes. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but there's such a vibe of parasocial relationships that I got from this film.
I love
and
that.
Like the ultimate parasocial relationship of becoming the celebrity that you adore so much.
Colin, I love that.
Because you could
I didn't even really honestly
really explore that.
But this is why I love this. It's like I knew that because that's literally part of it, but I wasn't like fully applying that to the thought of it in reference to our current culture. And that is very, oh my God, are we writing?
I'm actually down.
Anyway, guys, you heard nothing here.
Nothing to see
so
here.
we'll get into the deets. Are we getting into are we?
Yeah,
yes, let's
give us the deeds.
Being John Malkovich came out in 1999. The director was Spike Jonze, dude. It was his directorial debut.
Fuck off.
Yeah. Can you imagine biting this off as your directorial debut?
We do a podcast about movies, and I love movies and I love writing, but I am not like a cinema history person. My brother very much is.
Yes.
My brother Trevor is a literal living encyclopedia of Hollywood and like entertainment knowledge. It's actually insane.
You and I are not that.
Yeah, so I didn't even realize he directed this until after the movie.
Same.
And the credits rolled, and I was like, Spike Jonze, pop off.
Literally same. I also think it's because you and I are writing nerds first and foremost, which means all the more like you would think that he's the director, he didn't write it. So, but like 100%, we're not those people that are like the insight. So I too, when it said the end, I was at the end, Spike Jonze, I was like, shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up. I mean, that is a fucking swing for your first, but also it made me go like, good for fucking you.
Also, seeing how he changed from the movie to from the script to the movie.
To get into that.
Brilliant director.
I am chomping at the bit. The writer is Carlie Colin. The incredible John Cusack. Come on, man.
Also, doesn't he look strikingly similar to
whom must you speak?
Fucking
who?
John fucking
what?
The Beatle. What's his name?
Oh
wow.
Our brains turned off tonight.
John Lennon. He looks
with the hair.
Yes, and the face.
I can see that.
In the opening thing when you see him being a marionette like person over it, like being the puppeteer.
Yes.
I was like, John Lennon. Anyway,
totally. Continue. I see that fully. John Cusack, Cameron Diaz. I'm going to go on a whole riff about that. John Malkovich, Obvi, and Catherine Keener. The budget was $13 million. Period. I was about to say my rating. I was about to just go right in, but I'm going to take pause. Get into the trivia real quick. Carlie Kaufman combined 2 ideas to write the script. I love this. I was like, I have to share this. Kaufman wrote the script in 1994 after his time writing for Chris Elliott's Fox sitcom Get a Life. The script got him more work writing for television, but studios didn't know what to do with it. No shit. Used to working with a writing partner, Kaufman decided to collaborate with himself and married 2 seemingly totally different ideas he had in the same script. One was a man falling for a woman who wasn't his wife, and the other was someone finding a portal into John Malkovich's head. I just thought that
Whoa.
was so like it both makes me feel like writing is that much more special, and also a reminder that like sometimes we need to not get so overly precious about how ideas come to us, because the fact that he's used to writing with a writing partner and decided I'm just going to write something myself and married two things that are like so random, like truly so random. Like I want to write about a man falling for someone that's not his wife, and then a portal into and then the combo of that is exactly what this film is, and it works in that sense that I was like, I just loved that. I feel like a lot of times we have experiences where like ideas come in so hard and you're like, and then other times we're like, it is just literally like a prompt. It's like two prompts that you literally put together and go like, what happens?
The Charlie Kaufman also did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So
which we also will be doing because I love that movie so much. I could literally.
I was nearly cast in that movie.
This everything.
Is a very strange piece of my lore.
I'm a little sick to my stomach that I'm just hearing this.
So I was a aspiring child actor and a working child model. Thank you very much. From the age...
The differentiation is very important.
From the age of 12 to like 13 and a half. I lived in New York City.
He got in. He got out.
I got in. I got out. I moved to Los Angeles. And my little sister went out to audition for young Kate Winslet in that movie. And we like all lived together in this little apartment in New York. My mom, my brother, Trevor, Chloe, and me. And so we went, I decided to go along to the audition for some reason. We were going to go out to eat afterwards or something like that. It was like later in the day. It was like at 4 or something. It was like late. I remember it was nighttime when we got there, and we went up to the audition room or what, office, whatever, casting office. And my sister goes back and does her audition and then comes out, and Michelle, it was very small. Like it was a really small casting office. So like my sister comes out after her audition and Michelle Gondry comes out after her and like said goodbye to my mom or something like that, whatever. He looked at me and was like, "Oh my God, you're a spitting image of Jim Carrey."
Okay.
And I was like, huh? Well, I never thought about it. And he was like, you have to be like, are you auditioning for young Jim? And I was like, no. And then he was like, oh, hold on 1 second. And like the writer, I guess Charlie Kaufman was there too. I just realized that because he went to talk to the writer in the fucking office.
Obsessed.
So anyway, they had this whole conversation about aging up the character of young Jim Carrey, you know, like he goes back into his memory and he sees his younger self. They were going to up the age of the character for me to play him because I was like a spitting image of Jim Carrey and he couldn't get over it. And so he was like, we will reach out in a few days kind of thing. So like waiting. And it was just going to be too much work to redo the script. Like, I guess that late in the game. So they ultimately did not go with me.
Were considering changing the script for you is
girl, isn't that wild?
The biggest flex, and I'm a little sad that I didn't know this till now. I feel as though a piece was always been missing that has now been found. That's the coolest story.
Because I got it like that.
Because you got it like that. I love that.
Anyway, yeah.
Now tangent. I'm trying to see Jim Carrey in your face.
Look up a picture of Jim Carrey. Okay. I can't unsee it now.
Oh, now you see it. Okay.
Girl, I can't unsee it.
I'm seeing it a little bit right now.
We look strangely very similar.
I love it. That is.
But also different enough to be distinct, clearly. But
fair enough. Or are you Jim? Are you inside Jim Carrey? Is Jim Carrey inside you? Okay. Francis Ford Coppola helped get the script to Malkovich. Francis Ford Coppola, who is Jones's former father-in-law. Jones and Sofia Coppola were married from 1999 to 2003. I didn't know that. Called Malkovich on Jones's behalf. When he first read the script, Malkovich wondered if he had somehow wronged Kaufman in the past. The two had never met before. Before agreeing, Malkovich told Kaufman he wouldn't mind producing or directing the project, but that they should find a different actor. He didn't originally want to play the actor.
Oh.
They like him and Spike Jonze, I think, asked Charlie, why not Tom Cruise? And he was like, it's not Tom Cruise.
It wouldn't be the same with Tom Cruise.
It would be such a different movie.
It's just
completely different film.
John Malkovich almost feels like such a random choice.
And but I feel like tonally it made the most sense for the movie they were telling.
Yeah.
John Cusack found the script because he asked for an insane one. I'm obsessed with this. He asked William Morris to give him the craziest, most unproducible script you can find. When Cusack finished reading Malkovich's script, he wanted in immediately. That just warmed my freaking...
I didn't know I could love him more as an actor.
It warmed my soul.
It makes so much sense why he has such a varied and awesome career.
I was literally thinking that. I was like, he has one of the coolest careers.
So cool.
And I guess this is why.
Speaking of, we have to do America's Sweethearts.
Oh, yes.
My God.
I
bet what? You've never seen it?
I might not.
Catherine Zeta-Jones, Julia Roberts.
If I did, it's been a really long time, so it would be like watching it the first time.
Billy Crystal. Girl.
Oh my God, that cat.
Girl, it is amazing.
I can't wait. We have to do it. And lastly, there was some other stuff, but this was the most interesting. Catherine Keener didn't like her own character.
Huh?
I wasn't who I saw for the part of Maxine. She was so sexy and bold, and I didn't really like her. The actress earned a Best Supporting Actress Oscar nom for her performance.
Interesting.
Yes, interesting is the word that I will also choose.
I loved her as Maxine. I did.
We'll get
interesting.
Into yeah, crazy. I feel like
she also has like the most sultry voice I've ever heard.
There is something about her.
She really has an amazing voice.
She has something about her that is so watchable. Okay, so that is it for the trivia.
Oh yeah.
How weird.
Okay.
So, do we do our ratings?
Yeah, let's do
you go first this time.
Okay. So these are my initial thoughts after reading the script. So I wrote, overall, I really enjoyed the script. It feels oddly symbolic and deep, but in a way that is off-putting enough to keep you on your toes. In the beginning, I absolutely loved every single second, but by the end, I did find myself becoming a little tired of the absurdity and was ready for it to end. The world is so weird, but also so weird that it becomes tedious sometimes. I love the themes of impersonation. I'm going to start that sentence over. I love the themes of impersonation, imitation, and the search for meaning and fame in a world that reserves true belonging for the rich and famous. This script has a lot to say about life and what it means to be truly authentic when we must battle against what society has told us we should want to be.
You just ripped that right out of your tuchus. No, that is yes.
My
God.
daddy's score is 7.3 out of 10. 7 felt too low. I once did 7.7. And 7 that felt too high. 7.5 felt too high, and I settled on 7.3, and that felt right because as a script, I loved the weirdness of it. As you know, I love writing weird things. But sometimes it felt like it was absurd for the sake of being absurd, especially with the ending, which I did love. There's a twist in the script that is not in the movie. There's a lot that they took out for the movie.
A lot.
That I loved, but all the things I thought were lagging and kind of weighing the script down was taken out for the movie. And it made the movie an overall more enjoyable experience.
I completely agree with you. What's funny is when I completely agree with everything you said. You just said it so gorgeously. But I did not immediately find the symbolism in it, but then all of a sudden it like knocked me over. Like at first I was like, what is happening? But in a fun way where I was like, This is like, for me, my immediate thought was, I love how dynamic the characters are on the page. Like,
yes, their dialogue
is
so bizarre.
It's so bizarre, but it's so distinct. And even in a world this absurd, each person was very distinctly their own. True. Like on the page and in the film. Like
you never mix people up.
You never mix people up. Not once. And towards the very, very end in the script, I started to, because of how whiplashy we got with like, we can get into it. But in general, going off of dialogue, I was like, oh, I love when you can like know the voice of a character so much that you almost can start skipping the name above it. Like, yeah. And this script really, for the most part, I
skipped I wasn't reading names.
And that's a good point. And I have to say, like, that is rare. Like, it actually is rare. So that was something I really liked about it, that I just immediately was like, these characters are so dynamic right on the page. I thought it was interesting. This is a little bit more specific to the script that we can get into more later, but I thought it was interesting that the script took the long way for everything.
Yeah.
And then the film took the short way.
It did.
But the feel was very similar.
Yes. Well, there's so much similar. Like, there's so much unchanged dialogue.
Which made me once again, and this kind of gets into my like daddy do, daddy don't thing later, but like it really, this script felt like another reminder of like a script is a blueprint for a film. Because
Girl, literally the thought I kept having too.
Over and over again. Like and specifically watching the film, I was like, I felt weirdly satisfied where I was like, no, this script, while I do have some thoughts, and I'm excited to get into it, the script is great and it gives you the feeling that you have while you're watching the film, but the film is different in a way that absolutely, without a doubt, works.
The changes they made in the film service the story way better.
Way better. But I was going to say, I agree with you. Towards the end, I started to find it a little bit hard to follow, which actually felt strange because I was amazed at how well I was following everything for like 3/4 of it. For how absurd it is, I did feel like the writing up until a certain point was quite clear. Yeah. For the fact that we're like in and out of portals and like weird stuff.
In people's heads and having different narrators.
I was like, I have to say, this would be a good example script, I think, for someone who is trying to bite off something like that. Girl. Because I was like, oh, this is done very clean. Like
That's
it was
one of my daddy. It's one of my daddy do's.
It was very, given the circumstances, was quite clear to follow. And I was very impressed by that up until the end. It felt like the end just like they got so wrapped up in what they were doing that all of a sudden I started kind of going like, wait, what? Like what? And then that was starting to kind of like bum me out because I felt like it was paced well. And then all of a sudden at the end, it did feel like it dragged. It got a little bit too
a little too weird
for the sake of weird a little bit, but also kind of on the nose.
I loved we'll get into the details of it, listeners, when we're talking about that. But like, yeah, there's a very different twist and explanation for everything in the script than is in the movie.
It like crazy, completely different. My rating, Colin, we're gonna start having to write this on a whiteboard beforehand.
Also, I already know what you're gonna say, so, and none of this is planned.
None of this is planned.
We literally watched these separately. She watched and read yesterday.
I originally put 7.3.
Shut up.
But then I thought about it a little bit more and I landed on a 7.5 because I felt like if it did feel, I'll be honest, I feel like if 7.4 would be the most real because 7.3 felt a little low for me, but 7.5 felt a little high, but for some reason I just decided to stay there. In the sense that when I was thinking about the things we've given 8 and up to, it made me go like, ooh, but then at the same time, I did think there were certain things about it that they did so well. Yeah. That was so impressive.
It's a hard movie. It's a hard story to write. And it's clearly just like driven by passion. Truly. Like just, it's truly full creativity without care for like wanting things to like, they can make sense enough for you to keep going.
Truly.
Which I do appreciate. And that's something that we don't see a lot in film these days because people are so concerned with if it'll sell or not. And so I feel like some of these things really get made on such an indie budget that like no one ever watches them because it's just like the dregs of fucking Amazon Prime.
It's so interesting that you say that though, because I was just, when you said that, I was like, I think one of the things I really enjoyed about the watch, and honestly the read too, but the combo, I guess, was that feeling of like, it felt so uninhibited.
It did.
And so unrestrained. And we are in a moment right now where like good movies are good. They're not necessarily that extra. There's a lot of movies are lacking a little bit of an edge. And it's so clear it's because notes that were given from a higher place are wanting to soften these edges. And in some ways, I think I understand it. And then in other ways, it's like such a bummer.
What they should do is look back at movies like this to see
these cult classics.
The notes and the changes that were made between script and screen in this movie only serve us to make the film better, 100%. In my opinion.
Completely agree.
What were your thoughts on the move?
I really enjoyed the movie a lot. This might be my favorite role Cameron Diaz has ever played.
Honestly, yes. And she fucking ate.
She was so fantastic.
Like, truly good.
Like, yes. Yes.
Like, I think a lot of times people don't look at Cameron Diaz as like an actor.
I agree. In this film, she is acting. Yeah, she is. So good. I literally was like, oh, this is my favorite thing I've seen her do.
Yeah. She really absorbs into
So
Lottie.
I was a little bit like mesmerized by her performance because I was not expecting it at all.
When she's in the car and right after her first trip of being Malkovich,
she sells all her changes.
And she's like, I was John Malkovich. I was fucking John Malkovich.
Oh.
In the script, like she's like yelling at that point, but the way that she chose to play it was so much more internal and like in awe. And I was like, God damn, that was good.
She was so sincere.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Because John Cusack, while I absolutely love him, it was kind of doing the John Cusack where like it wasn't a
very character.
Yeah. And it was like, it wasn't a huge departure for him. Whereas like Cameron Diaz, one of the things in the trivia that I didn't keep because it was just kind of silly was that her and Spike Jonze like really worked on the look together because there is no physical description of her.
No.
So they really worked on it. But that a lot of the crew didn't recognize her when she showed up to set because they like really like shifted it up. But and it works in her favor though.
Bombshell Cameron Diaz. Like
yeah. I loved her so much. I really liked the film. I did feel like I preferred the ending of the film than the script, but even the ending for like a second or two there, I was like I like needed a sec. Also, I was tired. I'll say that, but it's a weird
film and it's a weird headspace to stay in for too long.
It is.
You get in
and I read the script and watched it in the same day. So I think it was like, I was like a little bit ready to, but I really enjoyed it. I really did. I loved seeing like the height of The Office, seeing how they did it was so fun.
I love it.
Because it's like you kind of have an idea in your head when you're reading it.
Weird.
But the delivery was so good. Like I really, honestly, our department should get an Oscar for it because it was so good.
And it's just, this is it.
And I thought that they did, but not. I thought they did a pretty fantastic job of visualizing that script in the sense that, like, again, for a very weird script, they brought the visuals in a way that grounded it. And that was one of the things that I was impressed by was I felt like the things I loved about it was how they still found moments of relatability in the midst of a nutso world.
Yeah.
And that grounded it. And so did the atmosphere. Because even though it was that they had to like hunch, then all of a sudden when they'd be seated, you would forget that we were in that world because everything looked so normal until they stood up again. And I thought even that helped in how you were meant to feel because it was all of a sudden off-settling. It was kind of like, whoa, when they would then have to walk and crouch. But then when they were seated, I just would completely forget that was this weird like thing that they were in. But nonetheless, I really liked it. I for the most part, it was a very enjoyable watch.
What's your daddy score for the movie?
I said 7.5.
Interesting. Okay.
Which I still feel like for me, probably more honestly, is like 7.3, 7.4, but 7.5.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stick with it.
Very lateral. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Boring.
No, I went back and forth. So here's what I wrote for my initial thoughts after watching the movie. I said, I like the film more than the screenplay. Where the screenplay lagged or got a little too ridiculous, the film pulled back and grounded the material so it could be an overall more nuanced experience. I really like how they restructured the scenes to make them more effective. A lot of scenes that you see 10 pages later in the script were swapped out with earlier ones, and it made everything much more engaging to watch. One scene in particular was placed in a different setting at Craig and Lottie's apartment, and they broke it up into two different sections in two different parts of the apartment. And I found that this made the exposition much more enjoyable to receive. I wish I had written down page numbers for this, but like I really noticed it because I read the script and then watched the movie like within like an hour. And yeah, it was a really interesting thing to do. Whereas in the script, it was one big long scene, they broke it up in the movie. And like she like answers him and gives him this new piece of Cameron Diaz's character gives him a new piece of exposition, and it just hit better. I agree. I should have been more specific. And I said the movie is a great example of how a filmmaker can take the source material and elevate it to a new realm. Yes, yeah, that is the biggest takeaway. Spike Jonze
fucking
saw what this could be and really took it there. I gave it an 8.4 out of 10 for a movie.
Look at you.
I do think maybe an 8 is probably more accurate. I just thought that was too low. But then
we're so weird about the scoring thing. Like we're deciding if we even should do this because we overthink it so much.
But it's a fun discussion because we end up sometimes. I end up changing mine
I know.
by the end of our conversation sometimes. But yeah, overall, I really like this film a lot more. It still is the script, but then like the changes that were making it too ridiculous were taken out.
Agreed. And
I did love those things in the script too.
Well, that's why I was going to say, though.
It's at the end when it got to be too much.
I completely agree. And although I did not love the ending of the script, I started to get real, like, had to keep refocusing because it was just like, oh, we're adding all this in now.
It was a lot.
It was a lot but again, when I was done reading it and then after I watched it, I was like, but arguably, this script being this way helped Spike and all the rest of them figure out how to make that feeling work in a different medium because watching is different than reading. That like, it made me kind of go like, even though there are things about the script I didn't like, I was like, ultimately the script is why they got to where they got with it. So I was kind of like, it really set the tone.
It's very weird. Like immediately, I guess let's start getting into specifics.
Let's get into some specifics.
It's like really immediately you understand that we're in the real world, quote unquote, but just left of center.
Yes.
Like it's that he makes it really clear, like or right off the bat, which is really fun. With like on page 1, like I loved the slug line. I thought was a great way to enter this story. From there, I was like, oh, because I mean, I'd already seen the movie, but I only saw it once back in my 20s. So it'd been long enough, but I remembered all the big beats. But like, okay, so this is what it says. It says interior cheerless room day. Like I love that cheerless room. It tells you everything you need to know. It's like this is what you're in for. It says the room is bare, dusty. A ceiling fan turns. The wall clock ticks. Craig, 30 years old and small, sits at a collapsible card table. The only item on the table is a book. Craig picks it up, looks at the jacket. It's entitled Sit. Craig opens the book. It reads, sit, 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 over and over, page after page. Craig closes the book. He begins to stand, but thinks better of it, sighs. He looks at the book again. It is now entitled Die. He opens it up. Die, 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 die. A rooster crows. Then we cut to their apartment, which does not make it to the movie
no, it doesn't.
whatsoever.
But it set a tone.
It's so odd, and it's also like, what's going on here?
It's
I think that's supposed to be him in hell.
Well, given the way the script ends, that really makes me think that. I loved that. Then I think the next scene, that they go into a series of, you realize that Craig he makes it clear he's a puppeteer and that he's out of work. And there's, I believe, 3 instances where he's looking for a job as a puppeteer and he applies to inappropriate situations. One is like a female puppeteer at a school.
Yeah, he's desperate for a job.
So desperate. And so I
gotta find one of the
You have to. The first one's pretty good because isn't the first one when he dresses as a woman and it's like so sincere though. It's like you realize how sincere it is, which makes you go like, oh, they're not parodying this. They're showing you that this man is consumed with being a puppeteer that he's willing to dress as a woman and go be a puppeteer somewhere.
It's genius.
It's so genius. But the fact that they did 3 of those, I believe. Now I'm questioning if it was 2.
It was 2.
I think
it was 2 because there's one where he said he's watching TV. And then it says Craig switches off. This is on page 3. It says Craig switches off the TV. He comes across it's an ad in the paper. Yeah. He comes across an ad for a female puppeteer to teach at a girls' school. Craig rubs his chin in thought, then stands with great determination. Then we go into a montage of Craig raiding Lottie's closet, putting on stockings, putting on a wig, putting on makeup, and he's dressed as a woman. He goes out of the house. These men are like catcalling him and stuff. Craig
seemingly very believable.
Craig goes to this school, teaches these girls. Everyone loves him, but one girl, there's actually one line that I fucking died for. So he goes to this school. He's like teaching these girls dressed like total Mrs. Doubtfire, dressed as a woman. It says, On page 4, Craig instructs a class of uniformed girls. He draws complex diagrams of puppets on the blackboard. The students are transfixed, except for one troubled girl who eyes Craig sullenly from the back of the room as she plays with a switchblade.
Like, but again, it was like it set the tone.
I do want to see that movie,
I know,
though.
I know.
Because it's so much more wacky. So, like,
agreed.
The film,
I was a little bummed. So the film went more
and the
real.
setting and like the color palette and everything really grounded makes it a bit more gritty. Like you're in this guy's kind of like, for lack of a better word, shitty life.
Yeah, 100%.
But in the film, it's
script, a little more out there. But he like goes to jail, and Lottie has to pick him up, and she's like, "Why'd you do it?" And he's like, "I'm a puppeteer." I thought it was so iconic because they keep doing a runner where he keeps he applies somewhere else, and then he gets in trouble, and she's like, "Why?" And he's like, "I'm a puppeteer." Like he just keeps saying it, and it's like simple, but it's also you realize very quickly it is their way of getting you into this idea that like this man is obsessed with being a puppeteer. It's wild. And
also the funny juxtaposition is that in this world that Charlie Kaufman's created, it's like being a puppeteer is like this great art. I mean, granted, I don't want, if there's any puppeteers listening to this, like
it is incredible.
It is absolutely incredible. But like he is jealous of this rival puppeteer. That's not even a rival. He's like the top of the top puppeteer, like the David Blaine of puppeteering. His name is like Derek Mantini. And he's so jealous because he sees Derek Mantini with like doing this special on TV with like a 60-foot puppet.
Like you live in a world where they immediately put you in the world as if puppeteering is like one of the biggest things that you could do. And again, so impressive, but like they make it seem like it's celebrity almost.
Yeah. Like, and this man's willing to dress up as women. He dressed up as a black woman.
A black lesbian. I was like, oh my God. I was like, dear God in heaven. But again, it was like, on one hand, I was like, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I was like, I get what they're trying to show you. This man will do literally anything to be, and again, in a weirdly sincere way. It's not mocking it. It's like, this man's obsessed with this thing.
And this is not the real world, even though it is.
Like,
but also, no character descriptions whatsoever.
No character descriptions whatsoever.
At all. It says Craig and Lottie, and it says they're 30, and that
is it. Did they give something for Maxine? They give
Maxine, they say her dark hair is like plastered to the side of her head or something like that to indicate that she has like a dark tight bob. But yeah, they really show you who they are through
wait. Page
dialogue.
7. I literally put, Craig sits in the passenger seat. He's made up as a woman and wears a full body rubber naked woman suit. Yes. Lottie drives. Lottie, maybe you should speak to someone about this.
That's right. It was third time because the third one is like a nudist thing.
Yeah, he was like a nudist thing. It was so weird. Whereas in the film, they just synthesized it into him puppeteering on the street, but doing this very inappropriate, like, it's gyrating.
It's like a priest on one side and like a nun on the other side of a wall, and the nuns
fantasizing about each other. Yeah, and like the nuns gyrating,
like fucking like the wall, like
they're both humping.
And then the other
air,
guy's like humping. Yeah,
and the
this
little
girl's
watches,
watching it.
And then the dad punches him. So and then Lottie, like he goes to Lottie. Lottie sees the fat lip, and she's like, again. So it was like the movie's way of taking something that was absolutely wackier. In the script, like way wackier, but nonetheless, they still kind of found a way to synthesize it into like, this man's so obsessed with this that he's willing to go like out in the city and do the weirdest puppeteering and get his ass kicked.
Yeah, that's his art. I also noticed a formatting thing that was really cool on page 5. So at the bottom of page 5, it's right after, also when in the script, when he dresses up like the African-American lesbian woman, he goes outside dressed as this woman. Again, also not great. He's in blackface. Oh, obviously not great.
Good God.
Like, thank God.
Thank God they didn't do it.
But he goes out, and then instead of being catcalled by men, it's women are all looking at him like, ooh, wow. Like I love the absurdity of that too. Yeah,
like
where it's like
believe this person.
And the flip-flopping of it, it was just very it really sets the tone for the story. But anyway, on page 5, he goes out, he gets put back in jail. Lottie comes, picks him up. It says interior car, night. Lottie drives. Craig looks out the window. Both are silent. And then there's a parenthetical under Lottie's dialogue that says finally, and then she says, is the trial date set? And I just loved the use of the parenthetical in that moment to indicate that like there's been awkward pause. Yep. She's breaking the silence, like because it also indicates like, you know, she's fucking over it. Like this is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I just loved that. That using it to indicate that kind of context for something. I thought was really, really cool for formatting.
Some of the dialogue in this I had to write down because I was like, it's so ridiculous, but so good. For instance, page 17, Craig says, we have to make it an early night. And Lottie says, they'll understand. Besides, I've got an appointment tomorrow with Elijah's shrink. We're getting to the bottom of his acid stomach. Here it goes. Lottie says, some sort of childhood trauma, she thinks. Possible feelings of inadequacy as a chimp. Interesting, huh? And I just like, and then Craig goes like, and then it says the doorbell rings, the dogs bark, the parrot screams, the neighbors pound on the wall. Like it gave you, like, you're like, and again, Lottie's so sincere. Like she reads sincere, and then Cameron Diaz played it so sincere. Like she's like being so sincere about the chimp. And then of course, later on we get the most heartbreaking insight flashback into the chimp's actual trauma, which again, I was like, God bless this movie for doing that. It's so weird. So weird.
And like really doesn't push the story forward at all. Like it's just a strange decision. And I do love it.
To like give a little compassion to some chimps.
Yeah.
But like that writing, like it just, and they played it so well. Like they played it the exact way I envisioned that scene. Like truly.
It was so good.
One thing that came up for me a lot while reading this is I felt very aware of what was not being said and shown. It felt like I was very aware of this, of why they were selecting what they were selecting to show you. I felt very aware of all the things that were happening that we weren't being shown or reading. And I liked that. It felt like the movie had like a little secret or something. And then up until the end, like I said, the end started to get off the rails for me. But for most of the film, I just very much trusted like my guide that, you know what I mean? Like I was like, I felt like I was on a ride and I was like, this is a weird ride, but I trust it. And like, I feel like I'm only being told what I need to know. Yeah. Up until the very end is pretty much how I felt that. Did you feel that at all?
I didn't fully place that, but I can see what you mean. Because there is so much left unsaid with the dynamics of how everything works and stuff like that.
So much.
Granted, there's more told in the script about the purpose of the portal, the purpose of John Malkovich being this vessel. There's definite purpose given to it in the film too, which was much more concise and straightforward, and I really liked. But you know, that's a good point, because it does in that way, it like leaves you guessing in a good way, makes you more curious. But you know, at the risk of getting a little tedious as well. I really liked, so with movies like this that make really odd choices, like with the 7.5, or like the 7.5 floor. The wording of that really fucks me up. But then you couldn't say the 7.5 floor, but my brain's just like, you need the. But on page 8, so it's in the script on page 8 is when he first gets to Lester Corp, which like. Lester. Sorry for named Lester. I don't mean to be rude. But so he gets there and it's like the little tiny office, but it's like 4 feet tall. So I always get curious about how these type things are described in scripts.
Yeah.
Because as I'm sure you know by now, I love action. It's my favorite thing. But
even if you don't, that's not even like my favorite thing, but when it's done well, it is. I'm so impressed by it.
To be able to paint such a specific picture and have it clear and concise is really impressive to me. So this is what it says when Charlie finds the office. It says so Charlie gets onto Craig. I'm saying Charlie.
I was like, Charlie.
Craig, people, hi. Craig shows up to the office building, gets onto an elevator, and there's a man in the script, but in the movie, it was Miss Octavia Spencer.
Octavia. I was immediately sad that she didn't have a bigger part.
I know.
I was like, give it to me.
Oh, God.
Queen, an absolute queen.
I love that she stole that part away from what was supposed to be a man, because that's just what Miss Spencer does.
You're damn right. And I sat there and I was like, oh, I hope that this is a character that wasn't in the script that they made, but then it wasn't. But God, was it great.
Yep. So he gets onto the thing. It says, okay, so then the man who is Octavia Spencer in the movie is like, oh, or you're going to floor 7.5. And he's like, yeah. He's like, oh, okay, I'll take you through to it. So then the action after that says, the man picks up a crowbar leaning in the corner. He watches the floor numbers light up in succession. After 7 and before 8, the man hits the emergency stop button. The elevator slams to a halt. The man presses open the door with the crowbar. The man pries open the door with the crowbar. Revealed is a standard office building hallway, except that the floor to ceiling is only about 4 feet high. Everything is scaled down accordingly. The number on the wall across from the elevator reads 7.5. I thought that was nice.
I agree. I totally agree.
And so odd.
So odd. I loved that that there was a video for everything when Craig would be like, so why is it? And he's like, oh, you'll learn it all in the orientation video. And the way that they did the orientation videos were so freaking good. I was like, it was like, it scratched an itch for me. I was like, yes, God.
I loved it because like, granted, so he sees the initial orientation video, which you see in the film. Yep. Craig watches it and they're like, this is why this is the way it is.
It was exactly as I envisioned it.
Yeah, it was exactly that. And
so weird.
Then like Craig, after he, finds the portal to John Malkovich and stuff, before he goes and becomes John Malkovich, he goes back to his boss and is like, hey, I should tell you about this. Like, because in the script, the portal is in a vacant office, like at the end of the hallway.
Yep.
That has like a copy machine in there or something like that he randomly finds one day. But in the movie, which I liked so much more, the portal is hidden behind some filing cabinets in Craig's office, and he only finds them when he drops some files behind the cabinet and has to pull it out to reveal that, which I really like. But in the script, he goes and tells his boss about the tunnel, and his boss is like, oh, well, we actually have like another video for that or whatever. And he goes through this whole other thing of watching another orientation video that's only about the tunnel, which you come to find out it's all lies.
Yep.
Like they have all this propaganda for why the tunnel's there, why you shouldn't care about the tunnel, like why the tunnel doesn't matter. It was really funny.
It's so good.
But like it was in retrospect, something that didn't need to be there to have an effective story, and did kind of weigh it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
Interesting. Yeah, I see that.
Because I remember thinking, I was like, there's a good 10 pages that could be taken out of the script.
For sure.
And then when I watched the movie and I saw the things that they had taken out, I was like, that's where it was.
Well, even
like, thinking back after reading it, I was like, I couldn't pinpoint it, but
same.
Yeah.
It even down to in the film, it opens on him doing his puppeteering and like giving it all, which they do show later in the script that he does go in there and do like a crazy performance and he like, wipes sweat. So like it was slightly different in the film, but nonetheless, I loved that they started it with him doing this like kind of epic performance, to be honest, and then used it later to show Maxine the exact same performance. Like I thought that was brilliant, and it wasn't shaped the same in the script, but the choice to do it like that in the film made it hit so much harder. Like because it's still so strange to be like, oh, he's inside John Malkovich. But to me, it was such a great visual representation of like, no, the man that was puppeteering at the very beginning of this film, and you're watching this puppet do this grand dance, is now in a person doing the exact same performance because he sees it as puppeteering. Like I really liked that choice a lot. Yeah. I just was like, it was so odd.
It's such a creepy kind of thing.
Oh, like, so creepy. And that Maxine's so into it.
Yeah, Maxine's a fucking little freako.
She is a freako. I have to say, this is probably going to be an unpop a pin. I felt as though I love Catherine Keener, but I felt as though a little bit was left
unexplored for Maxine.
I just wanted a little bit more from her because I think my only issue with her in the script was she was the only one that really felt like a character in a movie to me, weirdly, despite the fact that they're all so strange. She just felt like like there was so much to her. Like we learned ultimately nothing about her the whole time. She's other than that she just likes to go from one, like whoever holds her attention the most is where she's interested.
Yeah.
But not that everyone needs arc, but she had, in my opinion, none. Like
she didn't.
And,
yeah, I mean, I guess she arcs in the sense where it's different from the script than in the movie, but in the movie she accepts her love for Lottie and goes and like lives happily ever after with Lottie.
Yeah, the arc is way more substantial in the film, but
it's not really earned.
No, it's not really earned, and she just feels so one note compared to everyone else in the film that there is a reveal of them of some sort that makes you see them differently. She just felt the most untapped and a little bit of vehicle in the sense that like Maxine, if you look at it, like her purpose in the film is to push it forward constantly.
Yeah.
And I felt like I remember when I was reading it thinking like, oh, I literally wrote, I can't wait to see what an actor brings to this. And despite the fact that I love Catherine Keener, I just felt like it fell a little flat for me. It was just felt like she was like this unknowable, beautiful woman who just was like, whatever. And I wanted just like a smidge more because I felt like I got so much from everybody except her.
Yeah.
But it still worked, obviously. I mean, Jesus, she was nominated for an Oscar for it, which is a little nuts. But that being said, I mean, not nuts, but I just mean like.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
For a character that's that one note and written that one note, that felt surprising to learn it was Oscar nominated when normally it just feels like it's a character you see more layers to.
Agreed. I think it would be explored a lot differently these days.
Yes.
Especially I think there's a lot of themes and messages that we are much more aware these days of that are in this script, possibly unintentionally. But I mean, given the fact that this man wrote Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I don't really think it's very unintentional. I think there's just like deep philosophical explorations here that you can't really deep dive.
Well, and apparently he won't talk. Him and Spike Jonze won't talk about what it means, but John Malkovich kind of gave his like 2 cents on it. But Spike
I love
Jonze,
that.
Yeah, I kind of
I love that. With the Catherine Keener of it all.
Like, how did you feel about it?
No, I didn't fully like interpret that while I was watching it, but hearing you say it, yes, I did feel that. I felt like she had a bit more oomph on the page, but also still one note. And I kept waiting for something more to happen with Maxine. So I even wrote down at one point, I think I deleted it because I realized it was not a necessary thing, but it was just an observation that I had that I was like, kept thinking like, because in the script, they do this whole thing where like there's these Malkovichians and there's a whole cult that's built around John Malkovich. And the guy, Lester, who owns the office building is like the one who's like the head of this cult. And so we kind of see that planted about halfway through in the script. All of this was taken out for the movie. So we see that planted because Lottie at one point goes up and finds this secret room, which this is in the movie. She finds a secret room in Lester's apartment that has this shrine to John Malkovich in it. It's much more pagan feeling in the script. But then she asks him about it later and he tells her like that there's like, he's a sacred vessel or something like that. Anyway, when that was planted in the script, I immediately thought, and this hadn't been divulged yet in the script, I immediately thought, oh, is Maxine the devil? Because she keeps having these like, when you see the devil explored in movies, sometimes it's always like they're seducing everyone in order to sow chaos, especially with the way that she was toying between a husband and wife and kind of ruining their relationship. They were both ruining their relationship just fine without her because they're both lusting after her on themselves, but she got off on the fact that she could play them against each other, it kind of felt like. And that's very much like devil coded. And I really enjoyed that. So then like in the script, big spoiler for people who haven't read the script, that is kind of what it comes down to, is Lester is this 200 and a half year old, like whatever, sailor who made a pact with Satan to live forever.
Yep.
And Satan made this portal that it can go into different people. And you can then, what they were going to do is Lester and all these like 50 other people are going to go inside of John Malkovich's mind to create a hive mind super being to then rule the earth for Satan. And that is the purpose of John Malkovich in this portal in the script, as it is sold. Yep. And it's great because he first tells Lottie like, oh yeah, this is like for the good of everybody. Like we're gonna have 50 minds in one body, and we're gonna be like he's like, it's all for Karl Marx or something like that, and to make like a perfect communist society. But yeah, anyway, all that to say.
But I will
say
she
was going to be Satan.
The way that you just described it, though, is so much more concise and easier to follow than in the script. Like they get into in my opinion, with the devil stuff, and then they also have, like a puppet off, like in the script.
They do.
That's like crazy. And part of me was
in Vegas.
In Vegas. The biggest differentiator, though, I should go back for 2 seconds, and I preferred so much in the film versus the script. Was in the film, they decided that Craig was going to just pretend to be John Malkovich in John Malkovich. Like, let me go back. In the script, Craig essentially says, I am in John Malkovich.
Yeah.
He is my puppet. And he becomes kind of famous. And they go to Vegas.
Yeah,
it's like,
everyone knows it's this guy's consciousness inside John Malkovich.
Which felt like, while reading it, like, okay, that exists in this world. But then the movie choice they made was so much stronger, in my opinion, and added like fun to it.
Yeah.
Where they just, in fact, one of my favorite scenes with Maxine and Craig are when they go to John Malkovich's agent, and they're like, I don't want to act anymore. I'm going to be a puppeteer. And the agent's like, great. And then they just start laughing. Like they can't stop laughing.
Yeah.
It's such a great moment because you're like, that's Craig in there looking at Maxine like, we're doing this. And he's going with it. And like the manager's just kind of there, but the way they're cackling with each other is like so fun. And then they take you on this long segment of seeing how John Malkovich himself, like again, they hide completely that Craig's inside of him, has this huge career change. He becomes the pioneer of puppeteering. It becomes like the coolest thing ever. The Sean Penn cameo being like, I mean, I don't know, like I don't want to copy him, but I kind of want to get involved in the puppeteering. Like
loved.
It's so good. Brad Pitt as a cameo, like it's so.
Also, Charlie Sheen has this whole scene with him during
supposed to be Kevin Bacon in the script. Remember, Charlie Sheen made more sense, though. I think.
Also, this all was supposed to happen within 8 months, which I thought was also like ridiculous. Like,
I love that was one of those moments where I was like, I so prefer the choice that they made for watching. It was so much more fun to watch, like the True Hollywood Story, like version of what he did with John Malkovich, and I thought it was so much more believable that the world would accept that John Malkovich suddenly became like the pioneer of puppeteering, opposed to the world responding well to a person pretending they're inside or not pretending. It just felt too much. It was too much.
You're asking almost too much of the viewer at that point. It's too much suspension of disbelief. You have to explore it a little bit more, give a little bit more explanation why people would believe that. And also there were things in the script that I knew given the time period, it would never happen. Like, so Craig is impersonating John Malkovich, and everyone knows that Craig is in John Malkovich, using John Malkovich as his human puppet. Yep. Then he challenges Derek Mantini to this, puppet off in Vegas.
That kind of starts to drag in the script. It starts to make you feel a little...
It got so weird. So in this one point, the devil takes over Derek Mantini in order to ensure that Derek beats Craig and John Malkovich doing it, because that way they have... It's almost too much. I can't actually fully remember exactly why he wants him to win. But
because that's how in the weeds it gets. That and the combo, it's like the combo of them now adding like the devil in, and then on top of it, Craig's famous for being Craig in John Malkovich, and now we're having a puppeteer off.
Which devolves into full magic, though.
Yeah.
Like the puppet becomes a flaming swan that is reciting these lines of Equus, like this really intense play, which is amazing. If you've never seen it, go see it. But it's like this flaming swan is flying around the theater, and then it like burns into a pile of ash, and then a person comes out of it, and then that becomes a puppet again that's 60 feet tall.
It's too much. Everything hits at once in a way that does, to me, to take you out of it, in the sense where I was just trying to follow it at that point, and that's where the magic started to get a little lost for me. That I felt like the choices they made, for instance, making Maxine pregnant.
Yeah.
Was not in the script.
No, it wasn't. Also, like, that's really in the part in the story where the script and the movie completely just
separate.
Yeah, separate 100%.
Totally different endings.
Completely different movies, and the movie ending is better.
The movie ending is better. I liked, although, like you said, I didn't feel Maxine's arc was deserved to the point, not deserved, it didn't feel earned, in the sense that part of me was like, is Maxine in love with Lottie, or does she just realize that of all the people, that's the person who's most obsessed with her? She just seems like a person that's like, I go where I'm most like obsessed over in a way, but I have to find it attractive. Because again, in the beginning, she finds them all pathetic, but then she experiences them through like power. And then it just starts to seem like, if we were to entertain that she had no arc, it would be believable that she's just decided, well, I went through all this, and this is the only one that's obsessed with me. And because her delivery, when she, in the movie, she's pregnant, and they have this moment where like Lottie is like yelling at her, and she's so upset, like might kill her upset. And Maxine's like, this baby is yours. The only reason I kept this baby is because you were inside John Malkovich when I conceived this baby, whatever, which is so nuts. I literally was sitting there by myself watching, going like, this is the weirdest thing ever. But to me, the performance on Catherine Keener's side felt more like she was trying to not get her beat. Like, I actually thought she was lying, to be honest with you, at one point. Like, I thought she was just trying to be like, I'm not going to get in shit now. Like, that's how it read to me. That then when one of the last shots is like, you see their daughter watching them, and Craig's in the daughter. And then they're like, she's like kind of putting her arms around her. I was literally watching like crazy, because I was trying to go like, oh wait, did I interpret that wrong? Like, are we supposed to believe they're actually in love? Because Maxine showed no signs of being in love with Lottie at all.
Yeah, she liked the weird power play
of like two people looking at you with the whatever, but she liked it with Craig too.
There's a lot of queer messaging that is never seen through, that if this was made today, I think we would really hit on more, which could have been really interesting. In this kind of idea of, so like a big theme that came through for me while reading it is like the masks we wear. Ooh. And how there's this old cliche that's like, if you want to see, I'm going to butcher the wording of this, but I'm sure you've heard it before, where it's like, if you want to see who a person truly is, give them a mask. Because
I have not heard that. And
it's like the premise of why we have masquerades and stuff, is because you can only truly be your real self if you are if you're concealing your identity from the world, because then no one can know who to judge for what you're doing. Wow. So it's like, you put like, and there's been actual studies done about this. When people wear masks, their morals change, and they feel more willing to do things that they wouldn't do had they been able to be perceived. So it's like this whole, I wrote down a whole thing. I was like, I said, now I'm realizing that this also plays into the idea of people being who they truly are when they wear a mask. When we're able to experience life with one degree of separation, it allows us to accept our own desires and proclivities that we ignore or push down. The fear of being perceived keeps us from acting out on these impulses when someone knows it's us that's doing it. But give us a mask and we'll do those things happily, since the world doesn't know it's us doing them. The danger of only being yourself when you're acting like someone else is that you get lost, not knowing where you start and the alternate persona stops. So I love those kind of that exploration of like being a lesbian, but only really realizing it when you have the permission of loving a woman because you're cosplaying as a man.
Which
but then, like,
that I got from Lottie. Maxine
well, yeah, because they build in the whole like gender dysphoria plotline.
Which I thought
it's still in the movie,
but I thought they handled it better in the movie than the script. The script made it feel a wee bit parody. I don't maybe that was my interpretation.
No, I interpreted it that way too.
It made me a little more uncomfortable in the script, whereas actually in the film, she played it so sincere.
She did.
That it actually did feel like this woman, something has awoken in this woman, and she's trying to figure out what it is. And at first she's thinking it's because I'm a man. And then it's, oh no, I'm in love with Maxine. But I felt like that was so clear with Lottie. And I love that they stuck with it. It wasn't just Lottie going like, I think I'm this. And then I was like, never mind. Like, it was like, no, she found that she really wasn't. Again, I don't think Maxine was worthy of being in love with because she just seemed like such a user. But I fully believed that Lottie was in love with her.
Yeah.
Even more so than I believed Craig was in love with her, by the way. I thought to Craig, it was just like.
Craig is just out for a conquest.
Truly.
You know, Lottie wore this persona and this mask and found herself and her truth in it. Yeah. Craig used it only as a means to exert control and power over someone because you're becoming someone who has a higher social economic, tier than you, who has more accredited, like, what am I trying to say? He's more acclaimed. All these things that he wants to be, he's able to, realize those through a man who's already done the work.
Well, and the fact that they show that he's kind of pursuing Maxine before that even happens, to me, shows that she was always a conquest for him. It was something to prove to himself, because it gets worse when the John Malkovich of it all happens. Yeah. But the fact you don't even see him hesitate to pursue her, despite the fact that we see that he's in a marriage with someone he at least looks like he loves. Maybe he's not in love with, but I did like in the film that you did like believe Lottie and Craig as a couple, in the sense that you didn't go like, oh, they're obsessed with each other, but they felt like a lived-in couple where it's like they kissed a lot. You know what I mean? Like, it was like there was some, you could tell there was a lot of disconnect happening.
You
like,
bought
again,
it.
so much unsaid.
Yeah.
But I just thought that it was that's such an interesting thing, because I feel like that's something to consider, like with character when you talk about masks. But if you switch mask and you just talk about like identity and go like, who, like in your own life, like for me, like recently, this sounds so silly, but like I decided last minute I was going to go way blonder. And I was like, I feel like I'm trying on like a different part of my personality right now. I have moments where I'm like, I feel like a fucking rock star, and I'm like, yeah, bitch, this is the new me. And then other minutes where I'm like, what am I doing? This doesn't feel like myself. Like, but it's been making me like play with my identity. Literally something as simple as like my hair has been making me literally think about what my identity means to me, and why there's moments when I look in the mirror, I feel more like myself, and other moments where I feel less like myself. Then you add something like this and you go like, you talk about like a mask. So it's like you're adding something that actually you're hiding behind. And not to get into a social media tangent, but I feel like that's the comment section where it's like, you can choose your avatar. Yeah. And you can say whatever the hell you want to say. That like this movie, that once again makes me want there to be a sequel now, because
like we touched on this earlier of the parasocial relationships.
You're always thinking about
truly. Of it all, and how this really is an exploration of like the ultimate one of like,
think of the fandom now,
thinking you know someone to the point where you are becoming them, and then you want to control them because like it's,
or even thinking you're in love with a person that you've seen what their public presenting thing is, but like the movie would have to be so different in such an interesting way if it was done now, because fandom was not the same then. No. There was a way bigger distance like between a fan and an actor or a music, whatever it is. Whereas now it's like, there's still more of an arm's length than people realize, but emotionally people feel as though they know stars. Like they truly feel that I feel like that would just make this concept
stars
like,
that play into
it.
Just really, I'm lighting up about this idea of like when someone has a sublime experience and they are confronted with themselves, in this case, having the most psychedelic thing that could ever happen, being in someone else's full consciousness. and how different people like come back from that
Yep.
and react to it is so interesting to me.
That is interesting because think about how different Lottie and Craig's experiences were.
Yeah.
Lottie wanted more of it because she felt free.
Lottie finally was shown what life can be like untethered by like it's for Lottie, it's like the whole world was like right in view. She just had to look up and see it. But like for Craig, it's like Craig sees the world, but he wants to block out everything except what he only wants to see and what he can control. And it's just...
he becomes power hungry.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's really interesting because like this movie could just be seen as like a weird story. And it is. It is a weird story, but it's not just a weird story because like there's so many layers to it. And like I kind of want to now like research, like I bet people have done fucking papers and shit on this and like the philosophical
I am intrigued
ideas explored in this movie because I would love, you know what, I'd love to see some interviews of Carlie Kaufman. Well, you said he doesn't talk about it.
Supposedly, from what I saw, they said that him and Spike Jonze have made the decision to not really get into the meaning of it.
Yeah, because you know what? I guess like knowing what they thought the meaning would be is kind of pointless because
by the way, that is my favorite thing about it.
It opens up the conversation of being like, how do you interpret it?
100%.
Yeah, and this is a perfect kind of movie to do that with.
Absolutely. And also this is a tiny little detail, but I was just looking at my notes. Have what they added in the film. So they added Maxine getting pregnant in the film, but they also added in the film Lottie saying to Craig, she mentions having a baby to him. And he says, I just think, let me get settled in my job, which made Maxine getting pregnant part of why Cameron Diaz was why she was so upset. So again, I thought that was like a smart addition on both ends because it made Maxine getting pregnant like that much more like a fuck you to Lottie. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it was just like, also, this is so random, but did it jar you more watching Craig, how aggressive Craig was with Lottie?
Yeah.
The script, for some reason, didn't. It was
I didn't like it in the script either because he starts slapping her and it just felt unnecessary. But then him throwing her on the ground, I was like,
I didn't love it in the script, but I feel like I separated myself a little bit or something. But in the movie, I was like, he is being so abusive.
Where I mean also and he is holding her at gunpoint and stuff and locking her in a cage. So, but I know what you mean. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get why it's in there, but it was heavy.
It felt like they could have done it in a way that like wasn't.
Felt like a little bit of a tone shift.
It felt like a little bit of a tone shift in a way that like then was not matched later on. It felt like this weird moment. Because then like Lottie's mad, but she's like bizarrely not too scared seemingly. She just seems like she's fucking annoyed by the whole thing and like, let me go be free. Like I want to go be free. And this is like, ugh, versus like my husband has me in a cage. Like it was a strange tone shift.
It was. On page 78, I really love, there's a lot of like formatting, things that the writer did that I really, really love. And one of them on 78, he uses parenthetical again to shift between, so it's John Malkovich talking, but like at certain points, Malkovich, the actual John Malkovich, will break through and be like, no, don't, no.
Yeah.
But then Charlie will take back over again in the way he indicated. Craig, right. Charlie, what the fuck is Charlie? Craig, regains control and stuff. And the way Carlie Kaufman does that is in the dialogue, it's just all under Malkovich. But then in parenthetical, it says as Malkovich. And then when Craig talks, it says as Craig, which I thought was so well done because this, me personally, I didn't get lost really at all.
Same.
With where people are, who's talking. And that is probably the biggest hurdle for this movie because it's so mind-bendy.
Part of the reason why I gave it a 7.5 because I was like, that is not easy to do. And yet that part was very easy to follow. The devil edition, the puppeteer off, that got a little bit in the mud, but
I love weird,
and
it was too much.
But them describing people being inside John Malkovich and you always being aware of who and when and how is an absolute feat. I truly was just like, I can't say enough about how impressive I found it.
And like there's even like sequences where he would indicate a character entering by putting them in like almost like a slug line of their own, where it'd be like all caps Lottie, and then like you press the space bar and you do the line of action under her, like walks in behind him, and like I thought it was so effective because I think he knew that this is going to be so difficult for people to imagine in their mind that he really went out of his way to make it so clear, and it was so well done.
So well done.
Really love that. Also in the movie, John fucking Malkovich. Bitch.
How are we just talking about this?
Man. Everyone knows John Malkovich is a great actor, but like seeing him play himself possessed and fighting against himself,
it's so good. I had so much fun watching him, the way he would shift as Craig inside of him, because it was not over the top, which I loved. It was like this
most subtle vocal change too. Like his voice was a little higher when he was Craig, and
his body would rest softer. Like there was more of like a casualness in his body when he was, that I was just like, that's the actor part of me that I'm like, I gobble that shit up, where I was like, it was so like beautifully done. It was not over the top. It was not, again, grounded and otherwise insane premise that he wasn't doing a caricature of a person inside of him. He was just doing this very subtle, as if he was being controlled like a puppet. Like it was so, and him doing the dance, honestly, in the hotel, I was like, God bless.
And also he did some certain moves there in the thing where like it was not a stunt double. Like he was doing like a Russian twist thing. Did you like? And like I've seen people do that, and I got curious to see. I was like, because I was like, that has to be difficult to do. I couldn't do it, but I tried.
Oh, you mean that you tried? I love that you tried. I love that you tried.
I'm like, when you get the momentum going and you know where you're landing, I bet it seems like so much fun. No, I didn't even give it a full try because I was too scared. But he did things where I was like, okay, John Malkovich. Also, he's supposed to be like 42, 43. No, he's 43. And they have to get into his body before he turns 44. It's just, people age so differently these days.
It's so true. It's so true. I love how, I forgot who says it when they say like male pattern baldness, like they're describing about
Maxine, where she's like, when I looked, I saw you looking through him, like even despite like the overly large brow and like the male pattern baldness and like, I saw your eyes twinkling through.
It was,
which is like, do you know what it's like to have two people like looking at you and obsessed? You know what? Yeah, I totally agree with your assessment. I think Maxine goes for who is the most obsessed and devoted to her.
Because but again, it's like she needed the in of the power of it, because it wasn't enough for Craig to be obsessed with her, and Lottie on her own was not enough for her. She made that very clear. The fact that she was so activated by them being inside of him, it was like, that's how far they're willing to go, that they're inside of another person, and but still like fucking me type thing. That's how she read to me. She read to me as like a full-blown narcissist who was literally like, I don't care about any of these people. They're all dumb, but that one was fun, so I'm going to stick with that one. And I still felt that way in the end of the movie. But what's interesting is like in the script,
because she doesn't have an arc.
She doesn't. Well, in the freaking script, Lottie marries Elijah, the chimp.
Right. Oh, yeah. We
forgot that part.
So we said that the script and the movie separated, and they do so hardcore because in the script. So remember how we were talking about how the reason for having the vessel of John Malkovich in the script is that Satan created this vessel to create a hive mind of people to control the world, to rule everyone under Satan's rule. In the script, Satan succeeds.
Yeah.
They get Craig out of John's body. All the Malkovichians swarm into John's head, take over, and then we cut to like years in the future. Everything's gray. The whole city's painted gray. Everything's gray. Yep. And everyone is like living this monotonous, like, you know, fucking what's dystopian life. And like John Malkovich is this like fucking hovering god that is wearing like a crown and like a purple cape, and he's like making people dance like till they die kind of thing. He's this total Satan monster.
Yeah.
But then we cut to like Central Park, and Lottie's living in like this like gray camouflage dome in this like Eden-like environment with all the animals she freed from her apartment before. And then she's married to a chimpanzee who speaks to her in sign language.
It's really
so weird.
So weird and dark and sad. And
it made me feel so nuts reading that. I could not wait for the script to be done because I felt so like I felt ickified.
Well, especially ickified is the best thing that's ever been said. Absolute,
it was so uncomfortable.
Absolute ick. And I will say even more so when I was watching the movie before I knew that the ending was going to be different. And she and Elijah frees her with I was absolutely in love with that choice though, that in the cage, we go into Elijah's flashback.
They did keep the flashback.
It was so heartbreaking though. I literally was like, I'm not supposed to like cry now, but I almost want to cry because it was so sad. But then like the choice to like free her, whatever. But to me, the scene read like so maternal.
Yeah.
And it was actually kind of precious to like see that like this moment there that I literally had the thought, if she ends up marrying this chimp, I'm going to be.
You thought that when you were reading it?
No, I'm saying when I was watching the movie. Because I knew how it ended in the script.
Oh, when her mouth is taped and she does the weird kissy thing, it was
but it still just read like more like maternal to me, or excuse me, not read. It watched like when I was watching it, it seemed like so like a mama with it. Like for instance, when Craig comes home late and she's like with Elijah and the way Elijah like monkeys onto her and I was like, it's so Ziggy. It just reminded me so much of my son that it was like their relationship felt so maternal in the movie that I just remember going, please God, if you're going to play it this maternal, you don't still have them get married. So I was so relieved that it did go the way it went.
Had you seen the movie before?
Mm-mm.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I had seen it. I was pretty sure that wasn't the ending, but I didn't fully remember because it's been
but I'm just
years since I've seen it.
Despite the fact that the Maxine of it all, like I said, it still makes more sense to me that she just decided to stay with Lottie because she felt like Lottie was the most obsessed with. It doesn't matter whether she was in love with her or not. Point being, I liked that ending so much more because it actually said so much more about Craig getting stuck in their daughter and for like forever having to witness like their love or whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, their love. Yeah, absolutely their love. That felt like the messaging was so much more clear than in the messaging. The other, it just felt like so bizarre, so dark and icky.
It got lost because the way it ends in the script is like, so Craig, how does Craig even get to her? Craig is like, he finds his way into this like, what's it called? Like, Eden kind of space and sees Lottie there living happily with the monkey, and then is it Craig or Lottie that decides to go off to destroy? They're gonna go. Oh, it's Lottie. Lottie's gonna go back to the portal, go inside with a bomb in her pocket, and then blow John Malkovich up from the inside out.
That's right, and she gets her goodbye with Elijah
and kill herself. And then it ends with, I think it's kind of like, again, she's completely thwarted, I think.
You're absolutely right. Her and Elijah have their like goodbye moment, which is also
because there's
weird.
The Flemmer character in the script that was not in the movie at all. Flemmer is the name for the devil.
That's right.
Who is the co-owner of the business with Lester.
It was just too much.
Yeah, we come in close. Let's start and picture on Lottie. They hug. Oh, right.
What?
So Craig finds Lottie and he finds out where her Eden is. Right. And then Craig's like hugging her, like, you go do this, go stop everybody, like go stop evil John Malkovich. And so he hugs her. And as he's hugging her, we see a nearly invisible string attached to Craig. And we follow the string up we see Derek Mantini, who was clearly in league with the devil, controlling Craig. And then we see a string on Derek's arm and we follow it up and we see the devil, whatever his name is, Flemmer, controlling everything. And he starts to laugh. And it kind of like is like the story of Eden about to start, like, because like she's going to go out into the world and like now he's going to pretend to be the serpent and come down and like ruin everything. It's very odd.
It's very odd. It's just a lot.
It's very odd and it doesn't really work. Mm-mm. It's weird, which is fun, but
this weird felt a lot more purposeful. The weird they chose for the film just felt a lot more purposeful. I just was grateful that they chose the ending that they chose.
It's interesting because like if you sent this script out today, I wonder if it would, because like there's a lot that they cut out. Spike Jonze saw the like vision for this movie.
Yep.
And like I'm sure someone would see it today because it is cool enough that I think but I'm wondering, would it get made? Like I feel like if we submitted this script to a producer, we'd be told to take out all the Malkovichian stuff, change the ending. It doesn't make sense. It's so weird.
100%.
Which is kind of sad because how many scripts are we not seeing the potential of? Because people just want so many notes on things when you can it's the starting point for a project.
Well, and again, I know I said this in a past episode and it is a little bit, I feel like I actually like when things start to form themes because I feel like themes are actually more effective when it comes to screenwriting than rules because rules, you're always going to find people who are breaking those rules. But when you can find consistent themes that work no matter what the genre is, I think it's kind of powerful and can feel kind of freeing. And like I said this at the beginning of the episode, I just kept feeling like this script was the blueprint for the movie.
Yeah.
That as much as you could go and say the script should be different, it ultimately was enough of what it needed to be for the person who was supposed to make it to see that and then go improve upon it for the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like the script did its job, even with the things that we don't love about it, it did its job. And like, that's something that I think is important to take with you, like as a screenwriter is like, again, this obsession with perfect and like, I'm going to get it in the exact right draft. That doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so often there's going to be things that are different in the film to the movie, even the movies that are very similar. There's always going to be things that are slightly different that it's like more so getting your script to a place where it feels like the story you're trying to tell.
Does it feel like it represents what you want?
100%
to construe.
And I feel like it's easier to feel a little bit of freedom in your writing when you can lean into the trust of that instead of making sure every single word is absolutely perfect. Like that. That conquest I've seen stop more people from finishing a draft than, you know what I'm saying? Like this obsession with it has to be exactly right. I'm like, I just think that cuts a lot more dreams short and script short.
Yeah, because nothing's ever perfect.
No.
This is the old cliche. Perfect doesn't exist, and it's true.
And you have someone like Carlie Kaufman.
Yeah.
He's a great writer, undeniably.
Writer. It's like it can be perfect for you, but then a director is going to get attached and they're going to change at minimum 30% of the script and it's out of your hands at that point.
And that's why, again, it's like you have to do your job as the writer. And in a perfect world, you get linked up with a director who shares a very similar vision with you. But that's where then you do hand it over to some degree and trust that like, if they see what I think they see in this, they're also going to see the flaws that I couldn't see and we can improve upon that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, let that be the beauty in making a film versus just writing a script. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They go together, but I think sometimes separating them and going like, at the end of the day, does a person feel what I want them to feel when they're done reading this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And not just because I certainly do it. I'll have times where I'll go back and read a script and I'll suddenly like fixate on like 3 lines of dialogue. And I'll be like, this is going to stand out like a sore thumb. And everyone's going to go, these 3 lines of dialogue are why this can't go. And it's like, that doesn't happen.
Well, the last time we did a writing session and I had notes, we're really deep into like, it's pretty much done.
It's pretty much done.
And we did like pretty much a final polish on our script. And I had so many notes that like when we actually sat down and looked through it, it was like, why did I even write that? Like that actually.
Because it's so easy to get in.
It's gotta be perfect. Gotta be perfect.
When you're like.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that as much for myself and us as anyone else where I'm like, you have to remember that like one little bit of dialogue or one action line, if you look back and you go, ooh, I would have written that differently. Like that's not what you should be caught up on because if you did your job from start to finish, that person is either going to overlook that because they're not even going to track that is off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I have moments with scripts that are sticky. I call them like sticky moments where like it could be in its final draft that I love, but I will still have a visceral response to one scene that I know I've worked on like at.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I call them sticky moments where you're like, where even though you like the version it's in now, there's still like a stink to it as well, where you're like, well, every time I see this, I know that I did 20 drafts on this one scene trying to get it perfect. Whereas like another person will read that and have no fucking clue.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's why it is fun. Like you and I write separate, but we also are a writing team. And I think I experience that. I realize that the most when we write together, where I'm like, oh, like things that I harp on, you won't even notice, or things that you harp on. I'm
Same.
like, what? It's
I'm
so
so
refreshing.
much more objective when we write together.
Yes. It's so funny how that is.
It is.
Love.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually jealous that you got to read the script and see the movie without seeing all the changes that were there. That's such a fun experience to read the script and expect that.
Yeah.
And for it to be so different. Like it's so much the same as well.
Feeling's the same, but actions are different.
There's like entire scenes where, granted, like the sequencing is a little different than in the script, but there are entire scenes where the dialogue is basically unchanged. The dialogue is also so fucking good in this script and in the movie. But yeah, I'm kind of jealous. That's fun.
It was really fun, to be honest with you. I felt relieved when I saw that it was going in a different way. I actually felt relieved because there was a part of me that was like, do I want to watch like that dark and gnarly of an ending? Like, not really. And then I really ultimately was very satisfied with the ending of it. Should we do, I know we said we kind of had light daddy do's and don'ts.
Yeah, I do have 3.
Oh my God.
What is wrong
listeners,
with
at
me?
the beginning of this, Colin was very nervous. He didn't have 3. And I said, I have 1 of each this time. So
I thought I only had 2 daddy do's, but I do have 3 daddy do's. Let's see. And then I have 2 daddy don'ts.
I only have 1 of each. So I'm just going to go.
Period.
And again, mine, I fear will be redundant, but I also think that if we can take anything from what we're doing here, it's sometimes the themes and patterns that go like, oh yeah, I can take that. This one hit over the head for me. Let your dialogue set the tone of your movie, of your script. Find the quirks and nuances in each individual character and let it shine on the page, knowing in the film it can be toned down or shifted if need be. Because again, like that is the 10 out of 10 part of the script, was that it let the characters be fully their own.
Totally.
In that, like, there was no confusion. And again, that is unique and rare these days. Like a lot of times you can read dialogue and it's like, it could all come out of the same mouth. You know what I mean?
True.
Whereas this movie, it was like so clear, and it made the reading experience so much more fun to just know exactly who everyone was when they were talking. And it felt like this was a movie where there was a lot of dialogue, or a script where there was, and it felt like that actually set more of a tone than the action did, because there was less action than dialogue, even though there was so much going on. And then my daddy don't let your already batshit idea get too batshit. I was amazed how long I was on the ride for in such an insane plot, and I only really found towards the end of the script that it was starting to just become too much for me, and I just started to care less. The film, however, remedied that by still making a batshit crazy choice for the end, with Maxine keeping the baby because it was Lottie inside of John Malkovich when she got pregnant. But it was simpler, but it was way simpler to follow, and therefore it was more impactful. Even crazy concepts need to be grounded with things we can relate to.
Yes.
Bada bing, bada bong, bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada boom.
You're gonna see some brain share stuff on my daddy don't.
Yes, God. You and I are like John Malkovich. We live inside each other's little brains.
Well, yes. Daddy do number 1. Daddy do utilize interesting formatting to best execute a weird concept. The way the writer used parentheticals, slug lines, and dialogue to switch back and forth between humans, puppets, internal, external dialogue was so well done. I wasn't confused once while reading it, and for a story like this, that's pretty amazing. Daddy do. Keep things simple yet intriguing. The plot of the movie is incredibly simple, and the storytelling backs it up. The concept is not simple. Let me clarify that. But like when you really get down the brass tacks of what the story is, it's pretty simple. People know they have a portal into John Malkovich's mind. We're going to go with that. I don't know if let's see. Let me finish my thought. Keep things simple yet intriguing. The plot of the movie is incredibly simple, and the storytelling backs it up. We never get too deeply artsy in a way that makes the film indecipherable. And with a story like this, that's a pitfall a lot of writers could trap themselves in. The writer tackled a beast of a moral message and explored it in an absurd way that is entertaining yet also uncomfortable. If you like to write weird stories, read this script to see how you can do that without helplessly confusing the reader and still leave room to keep them guessing. Listeners, I kind of don't know what I was smoking when I was writing this Daddy Do, because I actually don't agree with myself fully. While I personally wasn't confused, I was bewildered. I knew what was going on and I understood it. I just thought it was a little bit too much.
Okay.
So if that resonates deeply within you, readers, take it. But if not, cast it aside, because I'm feeling mixed feelings about my own Daddy Do. Let's move on to Daddy Do number 3. Daddy Do show us the real world, but just left of center. One thing that I realized I love is when a story is set here on Earth in a nearly identical reality, but certain elements show you that we're very much not in our reality. When you can illustrate this immediately, either through off-kilter dialogue or through unconventional settings, it grants the reader permission to fully immerse themselves in the material and allow for the story to take you where it will lead without feeling the need to judge it prematurely. You're not in the real world, so you can't know what's going on. That is a powerful tool to utilize. Those are my Daddy Do's.
Love.
Again, take it or leave it with number 3, number 1 and with number 2, number 1 and 3 I stand behind. My Daddy Don'ts. Daddy Don't number 1. We didn't discuss this, but Daddy Don't use cut to as a transition after every single scene. It's unnecessary and distracting. Every single scene in this script has a cut to.
To be honest, I don't really get the point of cut tos anymore. They're so rarely needed. Sometimes I take it back. Sometimes absolutely
they are necessary when used properly.
But like few and far between.
Few and far between. Yeah, I don't think you should have a lot, but I think most scripts maybe have room for 2 to 3.
Agreed. Unless it's like, again, a stylistic choice, but that was not for
I like a cut to when it really gives you the idea of like a thing where it's like someone saying like, oh, I would never do that, then cut to them doing that exact thing.
Wholeheartedly.
Works in that kind of thing.
Yes.
Or if it's like a dream sequence that you don't know is a dream sequence yet, and then we cut to hard reality.
But this movie, it made no sense.
It made no sense. None. The only thing I could think of was maybe it's to give a sense of almost urgency and to the energy of the story of like, it's like we're kind of bopping all around, but
maybe, but I didn't.
That's like me it. Just figuring out something.
I felt the same way.
And Daddy Do number 2, Daddy Don't number 2, Daddy Don't overstay your welcome in a weird world.
Ooh, yep.
While I did love this script overall, I do think about 5 to 10 pages could have been cut out that would have made the reading experience towards the end a bit more enjoyable for me personally. I feel like we lingered in the world just a little longer than I enjoyed. However, staying in for so long and making it through did give me a certain satisfaction once it was over. It's not a place you want to stay in, but maybe that's a good thing for a film like this. Once you're out, and you can breathe easier. So it plays into the journey of it all, but also I think that's me trying to like wax poetic on a kind of a simple note that like it wasn't the most effective.
Agreed.
It was a little too much.
Yeah, more so in the script.
Yes, in the script, meaning solely for the script.
Yeah, fully for the script. We did it. I loved it. This was a very different ride for us.
Yeah,
but was again, I've said this to you 6,000 times since we started doing this, but I love doing this for so many reasons. And one of it is that I just enjoy films more in general, even when I don't. Like in the sense that there's so much more of an awareness going on, like even more heightened than normal of like, why? And then also ultimately wanting to give writers the benefit of the doubt too, but then also like being clear at times when it's like, oh no, that really did kind of take me out or that did whatever. And just, I don't know. It's just so much fun. It's all so much fun. We're just so lucky to get to do this.
Yeah, it's great. I hope you're enjoying the ride too, Script Babies.
Little baby. Okay, I love you.
Love you too.
See you next time.
See you next time. See you next week. Okay, or whenever this next one is. Okay, bye.
We want to give a huge thank you to our incredible producer, Scott Simmock, and our amazing sound mixer, Ryan Fee. We literally could not do this without either of them. So thank you guys.